Hello YouTube. This is my first video. The reason I'm making these videos is to explain what is happening to people out there who find themselves in situations with a partner in dependence, and either their partner or they themselves or both are special victims and they cannot get assistance. My spouse died on my birthday in Texas in 2017. It sounds like a long time ago to you, but I've been living the consequences of what happened to her for nearly 6 years and experiencing long-term retaliation by the people responsible. My home ended up being burglarized. I ended up in foreclosure. I couldn't sell my house because we lived in a bad neighborhood, because that was all that I could get financed on that property at the time. The circumstances were complex, and they remained complex for many years because of health problems she had, health problems other people had, and the fact that everybody came to me for assistance whenever there was a crisis that they were dealing with. I ended up getting sick with a respiratory virus called mono a few months after she died, and that was something that I had been carrying from sexual contact with her, because she had been a victim of somebody else who had died already in the year past before we moved into the house. That person imparted drug addiction on her, and her drug overdose death on my birthday precipitated a lot of other adverse outcomes. We couldn't get legal aid. We were also simultaneously dealing with Hurricane Harvey. We had structural defects in the house that we had purchased because the builder was dishonest. He was an individual, and there were a lot of things that were going on. It was a perfect storm. I couldn't get venereal disease testing when I realized that she had been unfaithful, and she had also been a victim during the course of our marriage. And the nonprofits did not want to help me because I made just enough money that I was excluded from all aid, but not enough to be able to overcome the circumstances that I was in. I had insurance through my job, but when I got sick, they canceled my insurance after just a few days because I couldn't go to work. I was too sick. I was bedridden, and I stayed sick like that for 18 months. We had mold in our home following Harvey, and that aggravated the respiratory illness that I had, the mononucleosis. And I ended up having severe asthma attacks and anxiety attacks because of nightmares that I was experiencing on account of her family and other people that were involved in her victimization, trying to silence me and cause problems for me and my family. I didn't do what I did in terms of coming forward for revenge. I did it because I had to. I did it because I was trying to protect other people from being exposed to dangerous individuals and being at risk of victimization themselves. So, as the story plays out, my credit ends up getting ruined because the house ended up being in default, and then the loan was placed with a predatory servicer, who then applied additional fees and surcharges, and increased the cost on the loan by almost 30% overnight. It was a secured loan, 30-year fixed rate. Couldn't get legal aid, couldn't get a nonprofit attorney, couldn't get any kind of attorney. I sent out roughly 1,000 letters seeking legal assistance, and I was denied on appeal, subsequent appeal, and final appeal by a nonprofit state-level agency that was governed by the Legal Service Corporation. Our extenuating factors were extreme. There was a long history of difficulty that we had had. My wife had suffered from drug addiction throughout the entire course of our marriage, and I didn't know about it until I got the coroner's report. I don't know why we couldn't get legal aid. We couldn't get any kind of assistance. We couldn't even get food assistance for the longest time. And we didn't need food assistance in particular, but we needed home repair assistance. We needed legal assistance. I needed protection from retaliation by people who were involved in her victimization and aware of what had been going on. And I needed legal assistance to prevent manufacture of a default on my home and wrongful foreclosure. But I couldn't get that either. Couldn't get anything. I went to the Red Cross. I went to United Way. I went to everybody that I could think of. Everyone. All the Harvey relief organizations and so forth. There was a delay in going to some of those relief organizations because she died 2 days after the storm. And I spent a long time, roughly 2 years, trying to get to the root cause of what had happened to her and trying to figure out, precisely what was going on with that situation, with great success, but at great cost. I ended up losing almost all material possession. All of our furniture ended up being gone. We experienced retaliation attempts that went on for years. Over 4 years after her death, we were still experiencing harassment and difficulties associated with people trying to silence me so that I wouldn't ask questions anymore, and people who were doing whatever they could to try to make trouble for us, breaking our windows on our house before we moved, doing structural damage to the house, destroying the water system, filing false reports, all manner of things. And there was no low that they would not go to. So I did the only thing I could. I left and I got out of that situation. I left that area. And when that wasn't enough, I took greater measures. That's what people who are special victims often have to do when they can't get assistance. Just because I look like I do, just because of my appearance, whether it's my race or some preconceived notion about my sex or my gender identity that people have, some stereotype, that does not mean that I am from a privileged class of people. That does not mean that I can afford access to solutions for those situations. There were so many different extenuating problems that I had to deal with. It was very complex what was going on. This is an incredible story. And I am someone who perseveres. I'm particularly determined. That's what makes me stand out from other people is I just keep trying. I keep trying, and I might not get the solutions I want. But if I can't get the assistance for myself timely, in the past when I've tried, I've aimed for reforms in the future for other people in the same circumstances, because that's the type of person that I am. I'm not going to leave the same structural policy problem in place in terms of how somebody's circumstances are going to be addressed because of a shortfall that I experienced in the same situation at a prior date. I seek these reforms to victim services and legal aid to ensure that other people aren't barricaded from the same type of assistance that I needed critically at the time in order to overcome the circumstances I was placed in. So even though I experienced catastrophic losses, and there's nothing that I can do to recoup those losses at this point, I'm still trying to get policy changes to help other people. I feel that there's a woeful lack of advocacy for people. I went to the appropriate legal resources. I went to everybody that I was supposed to about the circumstances and explain things at length, and I've still continued to make discoveries and explain things to people. And what I've learned is just staggering. It's become a torch for me to carry in order to solve these circumstances for other people, because the effects have been absolutely total. The losses that we've experienced financially and materially, not to mention the loss of peace of mind. It's been incredible. Most people would have given up a long time ago. I believe that that would have happened to most people. I don't do drugs. I don't abuse alcohol. I'm not a criminal. I'm a survivor. And I had experienced circumstances similar to what she had prior to meeting her. And I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I would meet someone who came from circumstances worse than my own origin circumstances. Being the person that I was, being a really kind and generous person, and having the best intentions, I didn't expect to end up in such adversarial circumstances. It's only because I'm so outspoken that I am able to express fully what the consequences were. Consequences are lasting, and I intend to make a video series that explores everything I went through, who I had to go to for disease testing, what my experiences were like with some of those offices, and what the outcomes were of refusals by people who were supposed to help, who did not help. I don't know why I was turned away so many times. Almost 100% of the time I got turned away. All I can say is to persevere and not to give up. If you're in a situation like that where you find yourself being a special victim, or you have a partner who's a special victim, or you're responsible for somebody who's a special victim, or all of the above, you must not surrender. You must not give up. Fight like hell, because it is a war. It is a war that you're in if you're in those circumstances. People, above all, want to silence you. They don't want you to get your voice out there. They don't want you to get your face out there. And you have to be a soldier. No matter how bad that you feel, you might have to stop and rest sometimes, but you have to be a soldier. Because what you need to consider is that what happened to you will happen to someone else in all likelihood if you don't stop the people responsible. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to leave comments below, you can. I pray every day. I'm a person of faith. I believe everything happens for a reason. And for me, this is a cause that I will never stop supporting. I will never let the message go. I'm never going to give up.